Welcome. Thank you for getting here. I got here with a very short notice, and that's also why I was not out in the sign out there. But hopefully you found me on the app, and that's why you're all here. Put the title up here for 5 minutes by now, so hopefully if you're not supposed to be in this session, or you don't believe it, this is the one. This is the time to get out. Otherwise, I'm thrilled to have you here. We'll spend the next 1.5 hours diving into the prospect to cash and field service integration for Dynamics 365 for finance and operations that I've been working on for the past 1.5 years. My name is Rytt. I'm based out of Microsoft in Copenhagen, where I'm sitting in the MDCC, that's the Microsoft Development Center Copenhagen. And what we do there is all the supply chain inside of Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And as part of that, I have taken up the integration because I believe it's important that we have good integration towards what we could call the old CRM side of the Dynamics products. Today we'll be talking about the prospect to cash integration, that's integration up against the sales module, and then also the field service, where we actually just released the templates yesterday. So that's perfect timing for being here. So on the agenda, I will start out with a quick overview of the tool that we're using for the data integration. It's the CDS data integration tool. Then I'll dive more into the prospect to cash integration, what we have in the package, what's in the templates, what can we do in AX. I'll say AX, I'll say finance and operations, and I'm sorry about that. I'm sure I'll mix it up a few times. And I'll probably also say CRM a few times, where I mean Microsoft Dynamics 365 for sales or field service. Then we'll take a look at the field service integration as well, dive into that. That was released just recently, as mentioned. And then we'll take a deeper dive into the actual data integration, the tool itself, see how you can modify what you're getting out of the box from us, and apply it to whatever installations you want to do. And towards the end, I have a short peek into the roadmap, what we are looking at for the field service integration as well. And I hope we'll have time towards the end to get some feedback on that as well. And throughout the session, if there is something you're in doubt or you have questions, please interrupt. This is a deep dive, so if there is something, just ask. So, with that, let's take a look at the CDS data integration. I'll start with this overview, mainly because over the last half year, quite a few things have changed. We started out with something that we internally call CDS 1.0, which you don't hear a lot about these days, because now we're actually moving everything to the CDS 2.0, which is moving forward the CDS-T and CDS-A, where the CDS-T is transactional data. So this is your day-to-day, this is what your sales module, your finance and operations, not your finance and operations, your field service module, your service module, and whatever you have on the XRM platform. This is what it's talking to. It's what it's already talking to today, so no changes there. We're just moving CDS into the same database. On top of that, we get a CDS-A for analytics. This will be used for doing all the great stuff with Power BI. It's a close to real-time mirror of the CDS-T, meaning that you would have all the data there, but without taking power away from your CDS-T, meaning that you can run long-running queries and stuff like that without having to get downtime or reduce performance of your CDS-T. So that was the story on the left side here. So on the right side, we have finance and operations. And this is where the data integration comes in, because we want to move data from finance and operations into the CDS-T, into the XRM, into the CRM world of things. For this, we're using the data integration. So if we look at the two databases here, the CDST and the Finance and Operations database. In the CDST, which is the CE, the customer engagement, we have modules like sales and field service. These are the ones that we'll be talking about today. On the other side, we have finance and operations. So now we're using the data integration, which is located on the Power Apps Admin Center. This is where we have the tool. This is the tool we are using to move data. In order to use the prospect to cash or the field service integration, we have created some solutions which are available on AppSource that you have to download in order to use it. This is changing some of the functionality available on the sales and field service modules to ensure that we have a good integration. For the data integration, we have released templates for prospect to cash, and as of yesterday, we have also field service templates there. These templates give you a out-of-the-box experience where you don't have to do all the mapping yourself. So you get a template for synchronizing, for instance, account to customers, and you can just run it. Yes?
When you're speaking about sales and field service app, is there a plan for other apps like PSA, for example?
Yes, my good colleague, Kim Nielsen, based out of Chicago, she's working on a project for exactly that. Right now it's in preview. I don't know exactly when it's going to GA. Yeah. On the last part here, on the finance and operations side, the changes we have made here, mainly on the data entities, is part of 7.3, that is the fall release from last year for prospect to cash, and with 8.0, that's the spring release that was just released earlier this month for field service. Prospect to cash, we actually also have support for 7.1 and 7.2, the older versions, but that will require that you install some hotfixes to get that up and running. Field service, as of now, is only supported from 8.0 and onwards. So with that, let's dive into the prospect to cash. So why did we choose prospect to cash? Well, we had a lot of scenarios where we could see that salespeople, they wanted to use the sales module, both for sales and marketing, and at the same time, you wanted to do your fulfillment and invoicing in finance and operations. But without the two systems connected, you would have to go and use either a third-party tool to get it done. But we wanted to provide something out of the box, and this is why the prospect to cash scenario for integration kicked in. So what can it do? This is the big overview. This is also what you will find if you go to the documentation as the first page, explaining what it's all about before going into the details. So I'll go through this, explain what it is before we start to dive further into it. So first of all, what you're seeing here is that we released it with the fall release, December 2017. Everything in the dotted box up here, this is what we have in the sales module. Everything down here, that's for the finance and operations. In between, we have the data integrator. You can see the arrows. Either they are light blue and they go down, or they are dark blue and go up. If they're light blue and go down, it means that data is flowing from sales to finance and operations. If it's dark blue and going up, it means that data is flowing from finance and operations to sales. You might notice that for orders, we have arrows in both directions. This is because you can create orders in both systems and synchronize it to the other side. There are some limitations, I'll get into that. Now you will notice that we don't have a lot of bidirectional here. And this is because, and we would love to have that, I would love to have that, but as of now, out of the box, the tool has some limitations. It is possible to set it up, but there is no way to ensure out of the box that you don't get into loops or anything like that. So you can set it up, but you have to be a little bit careful about the data you're synchronizing and make sure you have some flags to ensure that you don't get into loops. They're working on it, the data integration team. They are based out of the CDS team in Redmond. So it's something I'm looking forward to get later on. So if we start from one end here, we have the account. We can synchronize that to customers, meaning that any account created in the sales module can be created as a customer in finance and operations. When we do this, we also generate the party underneath. That's part of the finance and operations data structure. We also make a few fields read-only based on the origin, so we keep track of where was this customer coming from. We have a is externally maintained flag that we have added. If we move on to contacts, or actually before, here we actually have some auto numbering for accounts that we have set up, and the same for contacts on the sales side. For contacts, it's a bit more complex because a contact in the sales module, you can sell to this. You can create a quote or a sales order to a contact, which is not a possibility in finance and operations. In finance and operations, you can only sell to a customer. Now, this customer can be of type organization or person. So the meaning is somewhat the same, but the concept, the data structure behind it is different. So what we have done to do a smooth integration is that we say, as long as you have a contact that's related to another account, we synchronize it as a contact to finance and operations. If you have a contact that's what we call a active customer, meaning you have a quote or a sales order or anything like that, where you would consider it to be a customer in finance and operations, then we can synchronize it as a customer as well. Now, one contact could be both. You could have, let's say I buy a car for myself, then I would be a contact in sales. When I buy the car, I would become a customer in finance and operations. But I could also be a contact for Microsoft. Let's say that I was managing some of the car fleets for Microsoft. I'm not buying something for myself, but I'm buying via another account. Then I would also be a contact. So in finance and operations, you can have both, but that's automatically controlled. You shouldn't have to worry about that. But just know that it could be both. Of course, you can choose to switch it off if you don't need all the synchronization. We'll get back to that. Now moving on to products here. We have something called sellable products. And it's basically just products that you can put on a sales order. Meaning that if you go to the product, you can click the button validate. As long as you can do that, we can synchronize the product. Because if we start to synchronize products that you cannot sell, we will get into trouble when we automatically try to add it to a sales order later on. So that's why we have this small filter here. On the sales side, what we do with the product is that we create it as a product, no surprises there. But then because on the sales side they have the notion of price list, they don't have any price directly on the product, we also add it with a price list item on a price list. So there's some defaulting there. I'll get back to that later on in this presentation. For quote, you can create a quote in sales and synchronize that to finance and operations. We have added something where you can submit the quote, so you don't synchronize it before you submit it. And we have done this to avoid that you are in the middle of typing a quote, and then the synchronization kick in, and then you were typing 12 pieces of something, and you just entered one, and then it started synchronizing, and you get the picture. You can get like half-baked quotes. We cannot guarantee that you're done when you submit it, or well, we can, kind of, and that's what we want, because we just didn't want to have this half-baked. It's possible to switch it off if you need that, but out of the box we have it turned on. So we only synchronize the submitted quotes. On the finance and operations side, what we had to do there was to look at the auto numbering, because in finance and operations, when you generate a new quote, it gets a number generated automatically from a number series. But we wanted the quote to have the number from sales. So we have written some code where we can actually go in and override that and use that functionality here. And we are also using that for sales. So that's part of standard now. And we also had to fight a big fight to get the discount transformation right. But that's a different story. I don't want to bore you with that. But it's working now. On the sales order.
Sorry.
Yep.
One question regarding product. Just for the right in product in sales, if we are short, we synchronize to financial operations and the product operation does work.
Yes, and that's a problem. As of now, we haven't solved it. So what we have done is you will see a field on the quote and on the sales order saying has externally maintained products only. And only if this is yes, will you be able to synchronize it. Because otherwise, yes, then it would fail in the synchronization. So the question here was around write-in products in the sales module, where you can create write-in products on the sales line, which we would not easily, at least, be able to handle in finance and operations. At least we don't support it as of now with the integration. So we have a check with this is externally maintained. I'll show you that when we get to the demo. So that's a good lead into the sales order here. So we already discussed when we can synchronize, it has to be externally maintained products only. And we added a activate function similar to the submit on the order. So you can create the sales order in CRM or in sales and synchronize it to finance and operations. And you can also do it the other way around. So we also have a field where we keep track of who is the master of this sales order. So I'll show you that as well. And in here we also had to do some code around not only the discount but also tax and totals to get everything up and running in a nice way, especially with roundings, which gave us a lot of headache. Finally, we have the invoices synchronized, meaning that you can invoice your sales order, and that will synchronize a invoice back to the sales system. This invoice will be linked to the order, so there will be a link here so you can see what order it was actually the invoice for, just like you would have it on a invoice generated directly in the sales module. So I think with that, let's take a quick demo where I'll just show how to synchronize accounts and products. Or actually, I'll just show how it's supposed to work. So if I go to, let's see what I have here. Let's start with an account. So I'll go to sales here and create a new account. Seems like I got a bit tired while I was talking. Here we go. So one word here, everything I do here obviously is online and I'm on via the wireless. So fingers crossed that everything is running smooth throughout the session here. Let's make a AXUG integration. We can give it a phone number, something. We can give it a fax number. We could put a website, Microsoft DK. We could go down and say we want a address. I just want to fill in some. We can take. This is where I work. Denmark. So now we have a account here, an account. We can put some in place. Let's put 555, something we can remember. And save the account. Now when I save it, let me click save again. Come on, save it, okay. Now you can see now I got a account number assigned automatically. And if we jump to finance and operations, let's create the product here. So I'll go to my released products. I have that in my recent. So let's create a product that we can remember again. AXUG integration. I'll just give it the same name so it's easy for us to remember. Here we go. And I'll add item model group, FIFO, item group. We can put in audio. I'm just using the USMF demo data here. Site warehouse, we don't need any tracking for this one. Let's put a sales price of $199. And with that, we have a product here. So this is our product. You can see if I go down here, I have my sales price here. The button I was talking about before to validate, that's the one right here. So if I click this, it will validate that all the required fields for this product is applied, that they're filled out. And this is the same validation that we're using to see if we can actually synchronize the product back to sales. So now we have an account created in the sales module, and we have a new product created. Let me just save this. Created in the finance and operations. So let's see what's going on here. If I go to all customers, depending on the length of my speech, you see that we actually have the account showing up here. So now we have the customer that we just created in sales showing up in finance and operations. This is because before I started this demo, I cheated a bit, you could say. I kicked in the synchronization, so it's running in the background right now for my account and for my product. Yes? We have that, so yeah. So what we send over here, that's the primary purpose invoice, that is correct. You can change that in the mapping. I can show you that, yeah. Yeah. But right now we just default into the invoice because we expect that's the main thing here. Yep. And you can actually also see we have the number of employees here, so we have everything. So with that, let's try and jump back to sales and take a look at the products. And if I search here for AXUG, we have our product showing up right here. So you can see I have my name, my ID, my default unit. I have a few slides showing exactly what we're synchronizing for the product as an example. And you can see that we have also added it to one of the price lists with a price list item holding the price of this product. So as you can see, what we're trying to achieve here is that the user should just see it just shows up in both systems without having to do anything. That's the experience we want to have. So let me go back to the, yep.
And about the price, if they are changing with the data, with the data, so if I'm using the pricing list and then let's say it's not only the sales price and the inventory.
Yes.
Or is it synchronized in some way? There is something.
So you're talking about if you're using things like trade agreements or things like that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So as of now, in the first round here, we just support the base price, but we're working on getting trade agreement and more advanced pricing over as well. We just have to figure out how to squeeze it into the price list as of now. Another thing that we are also looking into is, I know some people in Germany have called it a round trip, where you actually ask for information in the other system and then you get it right away. But right now, I would say the fastest loop we can do fetching information is about, I would say, 1 to 2 minutes. which is not feasible if you're waiting to create a sales order, that you have to wait a couple of minutes every time you want some feedback. So as soon as we get close to real time, we are looking at getting some kind of lookup where we can actually ask for information like the price, so we wouldn't have to import it into the sales system as well.
I have a question regarding legal entity. Where do you specify which company should synchronize?
Yes, yes. I'll get back to that when we look at the data integration setup. But it's a very good question. Yeah, yeah. But you can specify that. So let me just continue here. So for the product, what you saw was that out of the box, these are the fields that we're synchronizing. I basically put some of the information that I'm talking about. I just put it into the deck. I know it's already live on the app, so you can download it right now if you want to have a look. So I'll not be going into details about everything. It's more so you have it for reference also moving forward. But these are the fields that we are synchronizing out of the box for the product. So what does that mean? It means that we synchronize the product type, telling us whether it's an item, as it is in this case, or it could be a service. The product can also be a service. You're selling a service, then it's a product type service up here. And we have the same notion in sales as well. We have the product number. We keep those identical in both systems. We have the name and product name here. We have the description. We have the base selling price that we're synchronizing. We take the cost price as well. We take the unit. So in this case, for my screenshot here, it was in liters. We also take the decimal supported for this unit of measure. So in this case, it's a precision of 2. The product I just synchronized had a precision of 0. Because it's eaches, you cannot sell half an each. Then from the item model group, we take the information whether or not this is a stocked product, and we move that over to the stocked item as well. So this is the information that you get out of the box with the template. If you need more, you can add it. We'll get back to that. Now, what about product variants? So finance and operations have the notion of product variants. So you can have different colors, configurations, sizes, and styles. You have these 4 different variant types. So what we're doing is we're taking the product number and use that as the key, meaning that we get this number over as our product number if we have activated variants. Here I have activated all the variants just to show it. So you can see that the product number looks like this in finance and operations, and then it would get a product ID similar in sales, meaning that even though you just have one product with multiple colors, say we have a product like here, black, blue, green, purple, and red, they would show up as 5 different products in the sales module. That's the only way we can do it right now. So that's how we're doing. So we do handle it, and this is the way it's done. So for most of the templates you will find in there, there will be some preconditions. This has a bit more than usual, and that's why I brought it up here. So for products, the very first time you want to synchronize products, you have to run something called populate distinct product table to ensure that we have it populated. That's a one time, just have to run it once, and then moving forward it will be fine. Then in sales, when you create a new product, this is standard functionality in sales, you can create it either in draft or active mode. If you choose draft, it means that you cannot create the products, or you cannot use the products automatically on a sales order without manually going in and activate it. You can also choose to set it up to be created automatically as active. So that's a choice for you to figure out what you want there. And then on the price list, ensure that you have a price list where the unit and unit group is set up Um, as of now, we don't have that as part of the standard synchronization, but we're working on that so we can also synchronize all the unit of measures from finance and operations and a bunch of other standard data that we're using. On the sales side, as mentioned earlier, we have this externally maintained field that we have added, and we set the value to yes when we do the import, meaning that we know in the sales system that this product came from finance and operations, and we use this information to ensure that you don't modify it here. So we make it read-only, but only the products that came from finance and operations become read-only. Yes?
Question, because you said that you are working on having also the base table synchronized. Does it mean that the plan is that all possible data in both systems can be fully synchronized with all the base table information needed, like, I don't know, VAT codes or whatever?
Yes, I wouldn't say all, but as of now, what we have on the roadmap is the most critical. So yes, VAT codes, that's something that we're looking at. We're also looking at simple things like payment terms. Right now, payment terms in the sales module, you can just type in whatever you want, or at least we don't bring it over. The same with a state or a country. It's free text when you create a sales order. So if instead of typing DK, I misspelled it. I would have a hard time understanding what's going on during the integration. So we are working on bringing that over as well and make that a lookup in the sales. So you have it as a lookup based on the data from finance and operations.
I'm asking because all our customers we speak have the waiting that all what is possibly synchronized should be synchronized automatically, that there is no need of any payments of manually payments of some base table in one or the other system. This is what the end customers are waiting.
Yes, and I would say that's also the end goal for what we're trying to achieve here. I'm just saying, if you ask me if it will be in half a year, I wouldn't promise that. But we're working on that as fast as we can. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
it's not clear to me. When you synchronize product, you synchronize all product from X.
I could add a filter, yes.
Also, raw material and everything you don't sell will be synchronized with zero. You don't have anything next that tells you this is raw material and demand. This is only a finished product.
True.
But why you don't think of something? Because what I'm thinking is that in many situations where we have a lot of problems
yep.
in the manufacturing environment, that doesn't need.
Yes. So the question here is about filtering. Why do we synchronize all the products from finance and operations to sales? There might be raw material, there might be components that we don't want to show up because we never sell it. When we created the prospect to cash templates, the filtering capability was only available inside of Microsoft, not outside. As of now, it's available in preview as part of the Power Query functionality. And this is what we will use moving forward. And as soon as that is, right now it's in preview, as soon as that is general available, you will be able to go in and put that filter yourself. So any field or combination of fields, you could put a filter. And that's what we're working on. But we simply didn't have the capabilities in the tool when we created the first template here. Yes?
The mapping of units and so on, the setup.
User measures or?
Yeah.
So as of now, that's not part of the synchronization. That's what I was talking about, that we wanted to add as well. So right now, we would have to create each, make sure you have each in both finance and operation, and that you also have an each on the sales system. Manually, yes, right now, unfortunately. But I mean, it's something I'm hoping we can get within the next 3 months. It's a very small stuff. Yeah. Yep.
This Power Query filter, is this only on the main table, or is it possible to put relations with related things?
It is possible to do some relations as well, yes. But then I don't want to dive too much into the Power Query right now, because then I can see then we're not getting through the full deck here. But we can dive a bit more into it when I get to talk about the data integration, and you can see what we can actually do in there. Did I get through this? Yes, so I think I covered the is externally maintained here. We have that. We use this on the sales orders as we discussed. And then we also have this check that we can only synchronize on the sales orders externally maintained products. So I think we have all of that. So with that, let's try to synchronize a sales order. So I'll go to sales, and here I'll just create a new sales order. Of course, it could be coming from a quote or any other way that you can create a sales order in the sales system. Okay, let's create a new one. Sales order. Just use something we can remember. Add a price list. We're using this one. Actually, let's use the customer we just created and save it. Here we go. So let me just add a address here. We can add the ship to address. I'll just take the address from the customer here. Oops. So we have the address added here. So now we have the header in sales. So now we can start to add some lines to it. So let's go ahead and add a product. And here I'm choosing, let me do that again. Here I'm choosing the existing product. That was the question earlier. If I add a Rytt product, I would not be able to synchronize it. Let me show you how that works. So if I add an existing product, we have the AXUG product here. So now you see our product is showing up here. Let's say we want to sell, say, 3 of these. We can also give some discount. They get $20 off. Down here, you can see 2 new fields. Has externally maintained products only. That is set to yes, because right now this order only have externally maintained products. Is maintained externally is set to no, because this order is not created from an outside system. This is created directly in the sales module. Now, if I add a Rytt product, here I can type in anything. Let's just put in something here. Oops, I didn't catch up the price, not super important. Now if I go down here, whoops, too far down. You can see now it updated and said, whoa, I cannot synchronize this order because now it's not only externally maintained products. So that would prevent me, and I would actually, if I try to activate it, I would get a, we can try that. I would, I'm just checking that this build that I have here, if I have the latest updates. But it worked, so you can see here it cannot be activated. So what I'll do here, I'll just remove this one to get on with the demo. I want to delete that one. Yes?
Are you able to sync the sales agreement from operations?
The sales agreement from operations as well?
Yeah. So when you create the sales order, you can do that from the sales agreement?
No, we don't have that right now. But we have, so in sales there is in field service there is a agreement, but that's a different thing that we can subtract. But no, we don't have the sales agreement as of now. So now we have the sales order. Let's go ahead and activate it. Let's secure. It's active. See, we got it back here. Now you can see it's yes here. So now for this one, I didn't set up everything to run automatically because I wanted to go back here and show you what it looks like. So if I go to the Power Apps in here, this is where I have my data integration. The first image up here is showing me some statistics when it's loading, but actually before that loads, I just want to get this one started. We want to synchronize sales orders to finance and operations. So you just want to run this. So I didn't set it up to run automatically for multiple reasons. With the products and accounts, they're fairly fast because they only have one task in them. So they're fast and synchronizing, so they're picked up every minute at least. For this one, I cannot count on it. It can take up to 5 minutes if I have some data in there, which I do here. So for us not to sit and wait for 5 minutes, I choose to go in here and kick it off manually. And this way we can also track what's going on. So now you can see I have started the integration 26 seconds ago. And right now it's running. So if we go back here, while it's running, let me just talk a bit about what we're seeing out here. So up here in the BI here, not showing up in just a second, you'll be able to see the amount of synchronizations that you have ran over the past, in this case 2 weeks, but you can set it up to whatever you wanna see the period for. Down here you can see all the projects that you have in your system. When was the last time they synchronized, and you can dive into them to see the details. So if we go into the one that we just started here, you can see this is the project that I have, and it's created based on the templates. I haven't modified a single thing on this one, so it's purely from the template. You can see it's synchronizing sales order headers and sales order lines. And what it's doing is it's taking on the source. In this case, it's in the sales system, so you can see it says sales here. Then it's taking the entity sales orders and moving them over to finance and operations to the data entity called CDS sales order headers. So this is how you identify on the line here, which is called a task, what the source is and what the destination is. And similar for the lines, we take that from the details and move it over to the lines here. Let's see how far this is getting. If I click it, I'll be able to see that, okay, my sales order headers are still running here in the synchronization. I'll go back and talk a bit more about the tasks in here. So I planned it in a way that I will have slides in the end where I want to go into this, but I could also see, going through it earlier today, that probably I'll talk about most of it while we have to wait for a synchronization here. Yep.
Does it make sense, or is it planned that the end user can activate the tasks for synchronization? So the end user is creating the header and all the lines, and then it's finished, and then it's pushing a button saying now synchronize?
That could be an option. We don't have that right now. We don't have that option. The only way we can do it right now is that we start it with a schedule. I'll get back to that. So it's kind of like a batch job that runs every, say, 5 minutes. And then what we do on the sales order, we don't pick it up until it's activated. But you could activate it 5 seconds after the last job started, and then we would have to wait for 5 minutes. And that's what I wanted to avoid with this form here. And this is why I go in and do it manually. So you could say best case, it's picked up right away. Worst case, it's whatever time span you have in between your schedule. So let's see if it's progressing. Seems like. So now you can see that we got the header synchronized. It had an update and similar on the lines as well. So if we go to finance and operations here, take a look at our sales orders. And take a look at the order here. You will see that in here we have the order created. We got the address over. We have the product here. 3 eaches of the product. If I look at the totals here, you can see that we gave a discount, and actually here I got into a rounding, but you will see that we actually handled it in a way so that we ensure that the total is still correct. And this is because in this case CRM have the discount on the full quantity with the setup I have here, whereas in AX it's per quantity on the line. And then we have this, because I chose the quantity of 3, then we would have a rounding here with the 20, because we have to divide 20 by 3. But we handle that, so you can see it shows up nicely here. Let's make a small modification. We could say that for this one, let's say we want to add another line, just to show that we could actually, oops, UG, yep, this one. Let's add another line for just 1 here. And just keep it here, like that. So now I'm taking over the sales order in the sales module in finance and operations, and I can go in and I can say that, well, now I fulfill it and I start to invoice it. So I could also go ahead and say that this one we want to save this. I want to confirm it. So now I'm confirming it to the customer. So now I have a confirmed sales order for a customer where we did some updates, and this is basically just so we can see on the other side that we're actually getting data from the finance and operations. What I will normally have running in the background as well is calculate sales totals here. This is calculating automatically the sales totals. It just takes a few seconds, and normally you would have that running as a batch job as well in the background. This is also something we are requiring before you can synchronize the sales order. So now if I go back here and trigger the synchronization in the other direction, here, it will start the synchronization back to the sales module. So I think while this is running, I will start up on talking a bit about the system requirements. So as I mentioned earlier, Prospect to Cash was released with 7.3, so that was December 2017, so it's required that you have this version in there. You can also do some hotfixes if you want, and then use 7.1 or 7.2 as well. I don't know what's saying requirements for field service. I mean sales here. System requirements for sales here, that's the version 9.0, but we actually also have a lot of it running on 8.2, so you can also use that version. And then of course you need to have the Prospect to Cash solution, which you can download on the app source. So this is the system requirements here. If you want to learn more about Prospect to Cash, there is a video. I've pasted the link in here. You can also go to the documentation here, where you will see a lot of details about all the templates. We have a Yammer group that I know some people in the room at least are already a member of, where a lot of good discussions are going on Prospect to Cash. So with that speech, and all of this is also in the deck that you can download. Let's go back here and see if it's completed while I was talking. Not yet, but halfway. So what we can do, we'll start up on the next session here. So the next topic is about the field service integration. By the way, before I continue, how many of you have looked at the integration before going here? At least half. That's good. How many actually successfully synchronized anything? Well, at least 10. That's good. So did you have a lot of issues, or was it some issues? Yeah. How long time ago? Who was the first one who did some synchronization? How many months are we going back?
7.3 a few months ago.
Okay.
I tried before for the version before too.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Hopefully you will find it's getting more stable now. At least that's.
It doesn't see this 1.0.
Ah, yes, yes.
Just some new ones.
Yes, So actually, I didn't mention that earlier, but we had the very first version was running on the CDS 1.0, where we had to do synchronization from, say, finance and operations to the CDS 1.0, and then from CDS 1.0 to sales. So it was like a double synchronization we had to do, and that was a little bit cumbersome, and the setup was very hard to navigate in your head.
Very happy to see that you
Yes.
regrouped the databases.
Yes, that's very nice.
The problem is that the use case for the template is too small at the end of the day.
Yeah. So we're actually looking at the template to bring them together so you have the full set in one template. But right now with the performance, it's actually better to split it up. You can get a faster frequency of your synchronization. Let's see, while I was talking, we're lucky. We got something updated. So let's go to the order here in sales and refresh that. So, at least you can see we got the extra line in here with the price. And if I go down here, you can see that now it says that now this is maintained externally, the sales order, because now it's saying, whoop, now finance and operations took over. So what we're doing, as soon as you confirm and you synchronize once, finance and operations will take over in the sales order. And moving forward, you can also track the processing status. So now you can see it's confirmed. You will also see when it's picked, when it's shipped, partially shipped, or whatever. All these statuses will also show up here as well.
When you say operations taking over, you mean that you cannot add any more items here?
Yes, that's right now. So with the synchronization right now, as I mentioned, we don't have a good story right now for the bidirectional. So to ensure with the standard templates that we don't get into trouble, we say that either it's system A or system B that's in charge. And here we hand over the master to finance and operations. Yeah.
So it's hard to do it by direction. If you have workflow in operations, how would it work if you set up the sales order confirmation workflow in operations, then you have
yes. That's some of the things we have to look into if and when we get it. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
It's not clear to me if you can have a different kind of scenario. So where I manage quotation in CRM, move the quotation rates.
Yes.
From there I
create a sales order.
I create the sales order, and sales order is back to CRM. Is it possible this kind of?
Yes. So with the arrows, all the synchronizations you can think of, as long as you go in the correct direction. So you could synchronize quotes to finance and operations, but you don't have to. But you could synchronize a quote to finance and operations. Then you could convert that into a sales order in finance and operations and sync that sales order back to sales. You don't have to start from sales. You can also just create a sales order directly in finance and operations and synchronize it back. Yep. Yes.
Does it synchronize order line deletions?
No. Yeah, and that's a big one on my wish list for the CDS team who's working on the tool. So right now it doesn't support deletion, which is a problem in my mind. So the way to get around it right now is to set the quantity to 0 so it doesn't show up. Yep. Yeah.
Why fulfillment is not on the list of fulfillment?
Fulfillment? What do you mean fulfillment?
Fulfillment in CRM.
Yes.
There's a sales order, you have fulfillment.
Yeah, as of now we just have the integration into the sales entity. Yep. So when we look at the field service, let's switch to this one now. I've created a similar picture here where we say that we have the account and we can reuse all of that. No surprises there. We have the products. We had to add the field service product type here in order to get it to show up in field service, as that is a mandatory field. Then the special one, which is that we can synchronize work orders, including both products and services on lines, into a sales order in finance and operations. This was chosen, I would say, for the first phase with the field service integration because we already had the sales order integration. Plus, with this, we could ensure that you could actually create the work order in finance and operations, and then you could pick it up as a sales order in in field service, and in finance and operations, you could pick it up as a sales order, meaning that now you can go in and you can allocate the product, so you can actually ensure that it's reserved, for instance. As soon as you start using it, you can pick it, so it's also taken out of inventory. So we can actually track all the inventory transactions in finance and operations as well. Plus, then we get the invoicing capabilities with all the accounting in finance and operations. Yes?
How do you use the hours? The hours worked in the work order? For example, the service engineer works for 5 or 6 hours on the work order. How does that reflect in your sales order?
That how many hours it works?
Yeah, for example, service engineer did work for 5 or 6 hours on the
Yes,
work order.
that would be part of the service. So you would see the service in hours on the sales line.
Yeah. How do you price that?
How do you price it?
How do you price the hours and product work?
So, I mean, right now, with the current, is the product you sold before, that could be either an item or a service. If you set it up to be a service, then you also specify a price, which would be for the hours. So you could say it's $50 an hour, for instance. Yeah.
Do you expect integration with service orders in finance and operations, as we have service orders that would perfectly map to work orders and field service?
So what we have, the last slide I have is on the roadmap, but we don't have right now to service, but we do have to projects. And this is actually what I have been had the most asked for, to have integration between work orders and projects in finance and operations.
Because once you start using service orders, you can have those hours and so on as well integrated.
Yes. Yes, true. But I mean, when I look at it, I could think of 100 scenarios that we should cover, but I can't cover it all at once. So we are eating our way through. That's the way I see it. Yes?
Does it in the end lead to the fact that the service module in finance and operations will be deprecated because there's no need anymore for it if this is all running then?
I wouldn't put that statement, but I wouldn't rule it out either. Didn't put it on that. But I mean, if there is no need for something, that could be a possibility. True.
I mean, there was no development on this module since 2009, and now we have a field service and an integration. So
yeah. I hear you, but it's not something where I can on stage say that this is the way it is.
you can help me out.
Give me half an hour now. How much time? How much time do we have? Yeah, half an hour. Okay. Okay, so that was the work orders, then the invoice. We basically reuse what we have, and then a small extra thing we added was the agreement invoice. We can synchronize that to a free text invoice inside of finance and operations. It wasn't, I would say, a big synchronization we had to do here. We had to do a few tweaks. The bigger thing here is actually that now it's possible to create a free text invoice via the integration in case you also need it for something else, I would say. But this was done to say that now we have the full invoicing story at least covered in the first phase. And I'll get back to what we have in the other phases coming later. But let's take a look at this. So this is the scenario that we imagined. You would create a work order. For this you would need your account and products. We already have that synchronized. The products we have added a little extra to ensure that we have the field service information. Then you would go ahead, schedule and dispatch your work order. The technician would go out and perform the service, and then finally complete the work order. All of this would happen in the field service module on the work order. Of course, it can happen directly on the work order using the web, or you can use the mobile app or any other facilities you have. For the work order, we are synchronizing it to a sales order. We do that as soon as it's scheduled. So here we try to use the current flow instead of having this activate or something like that. We just say as soon as you schedule it, we assume that you are done editing the work order. So we just put a filter, which we can do right now, saying that we just want to have it as soon as it's scheduled or higher until, in case you cancel it, we stop synchronizing it. And then for the invoice, here we're actually using the same template, so we can actually just go ahead and do the invoicing in finance and operations, and then synchronize the invoice back to field service. So if we look at that in more details, for the account, we didn't have to do much. For the product here, as mentioned earlier, we added this product type, field service product type. It can be either service, inventory, or non-inventory. So we had to add this because in operations, it's kept in two different fields. So now we're bringing it together in the data entity. That's a small update, but it means that if you want to synchronize the products, you need to have a 8.0 version for this one field, or you would have to add that manually if you want to, and backport it if needed. Then you go ahead and you schedule it. From this point of time, we start to synchronize the work order, you perform the service, and then you can complete it as well. Here we had to do a lot, actually. First of all, we have to keep track of the status. Then we have, again, to ensure that the sales order origin, that it's actually, we actually keep track of where it came from, that it was actually created from the work order in field service. Then on the line, similar to what we had on the sales order, we keep track of whether it's externally maintained. We also keep track of the status, whether it's open schedule or whatever it is, so we have added that information as well. And then we keep track of using two different tasks, whether it's expected quantity or it's actual used quantity. Because there is a difference in the field service system for that, and we use that information to bring over both values, so that we can both allocate and also pick the actual used quantity. Very similar for the service item. I don't want to go into great details here. One little funny thing, if you look behind it, but this was the best we could do with the time we had, was that the service line, we times that with -1, so you will see it show up, if you look behind the code, as negative, meaning that you will have them in the right order, but we will not have them duplicated. This is because the line number would be exactly the same, because they would start 1, 2, 3, both for products and services, and we couldn't just add +10 +100 because we want to make something generic, so we went for the negative. Yep.
Do you use a warehouse for each service engineer?
If I use warehouse or service engineer?
Well, do you use a warehouse number for each in the sales order line for each service engineer? You need to replenish the service tanks.
Yes, you can add a warehouse, yes. That's part of that. That's already.
For each service engineer? Yeah?
What do you mean for each? You have it on the line, but you can add it automatically or you can add it manually, right?
Each service engineer will visit the warehouse.
Okay, so you mean with the warehouse? Yes. If he has a van, for instance, and that's a warehouse, yes. That's supported with field service, and you would have to have the same setup in finance and operations to make it work. But you can do that, yes. No, sorry. And actually, in the next phase, what we actually started working on it from next week. That's something we will look more into and synchronizing more data around that. Finally, we do the invoicing. Here, nothing to say really. I just want to have it in here for your reference. We didn't have to change much. So with that, let me do a demo of the work order. So I'll go here and jump over to field service and create a new work order. And let's take the HUG once more. This guy here, and let's see, we need a primary incident type. Oh, actually, let me try and save. Will tell me here, work order type. Let's say it's a installation. I'll choose the default price list. I don't want to spend time on tax here for the sake of the demo. Save it here. So now we have our work order. Let me go down and add a product. I could also have set all of this up with a template so it would automatically add my products and everything. Right now I'll just do it manually. Take this one, and let's say that we want to allocate it right away. Come on. Just waiting for the browser to react. Here we go. And let's say we put a estimated quantity of 4, like that. And here I can put in the warehouse. And actually, on this machine, I was actually working on prototyping some of the solutions. So you can see I've actually synchronized all the warehouses from finance and operations in here. So we could take warehouse 13 from site 1. It's not released yet, but that's what we're working on for the next phase, some of this. So let me save this guy, and let's also add a service. And I think I have a, come on. A firmware that we can use. At least I know that's a service here. Let's say we used it for 2 hours. And that's fine. We'll save this. So now we have a work order with a product and a service on it. Let's go ahead and quickly book it so that we can schedule it. I'll use this guy. Go. And now let's set it to be scheduled. So now we have a scheduled work order with a product and a service on it. Let's go in and trigger the synchronization. So again, I'll go to the data integration here. I didn't set that up to run as a batch. And for this one, we could talk a bit when it's running, because there is a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So I have my work order here. And let me just start it. So now it's running here. So what we're doing with the work order, just like for the sales order, we're synchronizing the header information. But then, as I mentioned, we have the service and the product that's split into 2 different entities on the field service side, where we want it into the same data entity, the sales order line, on the finance and operations side. So what we have done here is that we take both the estimate, the used, the estimate and the used, so both for service and products, we bring that over to the sales order line. So here we're actually using the template with all the tasks to tweak that we get information from 4 different places into the same entity inside of finance and operations. And of course you could do it in the other way as well, going out. So while this is running, I expect this to run a little long because we have these 5 here that it has to check. let's go ahead and see the requirements. So requirements here are a bit similar, except this requires 8.0, the April version, and then we require that you have field service 9.0, and this is based on the prospect to cache because we use some of the functionality from prospect to cache, so it also requires that you install the prospect to cache solution, and on top of that the field service integration solution, and these are both available on AppSource. Just like with prospect to cache, you can get a lot of information from the documentation here. For prospect to cache, we have a short 4-minute video released, and I hope that later this week that we will have around 7 or 8 minute video released, a similar video showing the functionality with field service, where we have cut out the waiting time and done a lot of explanations with some graphics and so on, explaining how it's working and everything. There's also a Yammer group for this field service that you can go into. It's also on the Dynamics AX feedback programs. With that, I'll start to talk a bit about the data integration in more depth. So let's take a look at that. Because now I think we can actually take this, I will show this, and then we'll go in and see if the other one is done. So the concept here is that we're using currently the Power App as the platform. So we use the connections from Power Apps. So this is the light brown here. Then we have a connection set, which is based on a number of connections. And we have in there the organization mapping, which is defining basically, is it going from this business unit to that legal entity, or what is it? So this is the mapping between the legal entities and the business unit. That's in the organization mapping. And then finally, we have something called integration keys. This is because the sales, the CE, all the products there, so sales, finance, and operations, and so on, everything in the XRM database, they use a GUID. That's the ID for most records in there. We don't have the same notion in finance and operations everywhere. So we have integration keys to keep track of which field we should put into the GUID and where we should look for the GUID. So we have a mapping there, and that's the integration key. For everything that we have in the template, it's done automatically. But if you freestyle and you create your own entities and stuff like that, you might have to create a integration key, or most likely you will have to set it up unless it picks it up automatically. But I'll show you that. So let's actually go and take a look here, how far it got. Looks like it's still running. So while this is running, let's jump out and take a look at the connections. So now I went to the Power Apps. I'm no longer on the admin side. In here I have my connections. You can see I have a bunch of connections here, mainly working with operations and sales, as you can see here. If I wanted to create a new connection, I would go here, click New. And in here you can see that I can create connections for all kind of sources of data that I want to tap into. There's a lot in here. I can't remember how many, like 150 or something like that. For this, I'm interested in the Dynamics products. So you have them here. This is the CRM, so the sales and finance and operations and so on. And this is our field service up here. And this is our finance and operations down here. So I'll just set up a connection here, set up the user. Normally it would be an admin, ensuring that I have the correct permissions. So once I have the connection set up for both systems, I would go back here to my data integration. And now I want to create a connection set. A connection set would go in and say that it points to 2 connections. So I would choose a connection here. I have a lot in here. Anyway, I could take this one here. And on the other side, let's say we take this one here. Then it would load the environments that this user have access to in here. I don't want to go into that. I know that on my Microsoft I would have hundreds and hundreds, so it will take some time. I'll give it a name, and then I'll specify the organizations. For operations, that could be USMF, that was the demo data we were using. For sales, it would normally be the name that I have here. Whoops. This Deo Enterprise 14, for instance, here. That would be my business unit over here. And I can add as many as I like, so I could add more. If I'm also integrating into DMF, for instance, then I could have that as well. And I can just keep adding for everything that I want here. I don't want to create this because I have plenty of these. Connection set, one more thing in here. That was the keys. Come on.
If you validate the legal entities also during the connection set,
I know we validate the business unit, the legal, so the AX legal entity. I'm not sure, but someone is nodding. I don't know, have someone tested that? I haven't checked that we are validating it. I would expect that we are.
recently got an error.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's open one of the existing ones here. So here you can see we had the organization. For this one I just had a simple set. I could add multiple as mentioned before. And here I can also have my integration keys. You can see some of them are already filled. So here I'm saying this field over here is the one I'm using for the grid. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show here. I think the tricky part here can be that if you're not in the same environment, or you mess up some of the connections with the connection set or something like that, it can be hard to figure out what's going on. Especially because you could see I have tens or hundreds of different connections and stuff. So sometimes it's very hard for me. So I've been giving that feedback. I know I've also got it from some of you guys. So the CDS team is working on making that experience smoother, so you have it in a nicer flow. So let's go back to our work order here and see if it's done. No, it's running for a long time today. It's almost done. Let's see, how far is it? The last task, okay. Well, actually, we're done with what we care about. We got our header, we got our service line, and we got our product. Right now, it's just looking for something that we don't have any of. So we can actually go to AX, to the sales orders. Yes?
One question in the meantime, if this takes 8 minutes for one, what if we have to sync during night 10,000 work orders between the two systems?
Yes.
Is it doable with the synchronization, or do we need to find other solutions?
So this one, I mean, right now it hasn't been running for a while, so it's taking longer the first time. It's always like that for me at least. I would say performance, we're using change tracking. So unless you created 10,000 records during the day and are synchronizing it during the night.
Yeah, that might happen, for example.
Yeah.
Or synchronize 30,000 customer accounts during the night.
Yeah, I mean, if it will only take the delta from the last synchronization. So if you have that high volume, I would suggest that you set it up to synchronize more often. Maybe every hour or something like that. Then you split it into smaller chunks.
And is it linked to the limitation of the current connectors, which can only handle 300 connections per minute, like Azure Logic App connectors, or is there no limitation there?
I don't think we have the same limitations here, but I have been asking for performance data for a while, and I didn't get anything like concrete so far.
It's still processing.
Yeah. But we have tested it with, I would say, fairly big volumes. I mean, hundreds of thousands, yeah. This one here. So now you can see now we have the two orders here. We have the sales order from before, and we have the work order here. And now I actually know why I was confused before, looking for something on the sales order header. That was because it was coming from a sales order and not from a work order. So that's why I didn't see it. So let's see if we start with that. if I go to the header here, we can see that this this sales order, the origin is actually from integration. I set it up to be integration work order, WO, and you can see that the status is scheduled right now. So we have all of this information synchronized over. You can also see that the lines we have here, we have the firmware. I didn't have a good match with the unit here. It's set up for each right now, but I guess it's a firmware, so that's fair, although it's a service. And then we have the product that we created earlier. So you can see that I have all my information here as well on the sales order. With that, let's continue on the data integration here. So we have a number of templates as well. These templates, they are the ones for prospect to cash and for field service. These are used to create your projects. Now these projects, you can choose, once you have created them, to save them as a template as well. Each project can have one or multiple tasks, each with some mapping, some filters, and also the entity field and transformation needed. They're triggered by a schedule or manually, and the execution, this is also where you view the execution status and the sync history. So this is where I've been going to whenever I wanted to see if it was done. So the templates, they're non-executable. I don't want to go through all of this because we've been talking a lot about most of it. One thing I want to mention here is that templates can be saved in three forms, either for the user, so they're only visible to the one who saved them. They can be saved for the entire organization of that user, meaning that when I work for Microsoft, I would see all the templates created by any Microsoft employee that they want to share with others. This is why when I go there in a minute, you will see I have quite a few templates. Or we can have templates that we share with everyone, and these are, as of now, the templates coming from Microsoft for the prospect to cash and field service. So I think let's go over and take a look at what it looks like in here. Down here, and we could take a look at, actually let's create a new project. I think that's easiest. So we can create it for, you can see I have a bunch of templates here. A lot of them are old. If you look at the author here, you can see who created them. If you look at the ones coming from Microsoft, those are the ones for right now prospect to cash and field service. The version is also indicating that you're looking at the latest one, but we're keeping it to just one version to avoid confusions. So if I create one for instance, let's take a simple one. We can take the account. Now I'm choosing a connection set. I have created a bunch of connection sets. So this is going from this sales instance to this operations instance. You can see the environment out here. I'll choose the organizations. Here I've just set it up with one set of organizations, but I could have set up multiple. So what it's doing right now, it's copying the information from the templates, generating the project. And as soon as I have the project in here, you can see now it's editable. Now I can do stuff to it. So now I could go in and look at the mapping here. This is the mapping coming from the template. So you can see these are the fields that we're synchronizing. If I wanted to add an additional field, I could do that down here. Let's say I wanted the, whatever, address 1 composite here, and some address city over here. So I can basically choose any field in the entity on the source and on the destination. And this is any field, meaning that it's everything coming with standard. If you added a field manually on either side, it would also show up here. as soon as you, oh, I'll show that later, but you can refresh the entity. Um, in here you could say that I want to add a transformation. This is the very simple form right now. You can truncate, you can do value map. Value map is a simple A means 1, B means 2, stuff like that. You can see we have, for instance, here for country region, we have somewhere we do some value mapping here. You can also do defaulting. For instance, on the account here, I'm defaulting, I think you asked that earlier, I'm defaulting the road here to invoice, but you could change that in here as well to add a different default. And when we get Power Query in public, you would be able to use Power Query to do this transformation as well. And that would open up for a lot of additional possibilities here. So I can add additional fields. I can also modify the existing. If I don't like it, I can simply just go in and pick another field. So basically it's fairly open and it's all done in this UI. And then you would just go up and save it here. I don't want to do that because I'll probably mess it up. So what else in here? Oh yeah, the scheduling. So we have on the scheduling here, I can see I'm running out of time in just a couple of minutes, so I just want to cover the basics here before we jump to the roadmap. So I can choose to have it recur every, and that could be down to 1 minute and up to months. The execution history here, this one we just created, so that's not super exciting. But you can see this is where I had my execution, and if something went wrong, like on this one, I would be able to go in here and see what the issue was, in most cases at least. And here you can see that for these 3 records, you can see that it's giving this error over here. And in this case, it's a state that's missing. When you do the scheduling, by the way, you can also set up to have warnings sent to some email accounts if something goes wrong. And that was in here as well. So you just go in and set the notification, which you can set up as soon as you do this. So here. So with that, let me get, back to the PowerPoint. I'll skip these. You can have a look at that later on. We did that and this. I'll skip through this and go to the roadmap. So this is the roadmap that we're looking at for field service moving forward. So you can see here the phase 3, we are looking at synchronizing warehouses. That was what I just showed you. We are looking at the on-hand information as well, so that we can take the on-hand information from finance and operations and make sure that that's available to the field technician. We also want to ensure that the field technician, he can actually do inventory transfer, so they could move material from one van to another while they're on the road, or they could do some other adjustments in case they do a cycle count or something in the van. Then what we just recently added to the roadmap, that is this work order to project. And right now we're looking at nailing all the scenarios around that. I have arrows in both directions, but I'm not exactly sure what the exact scenario would be that we can cover there. But that's something that we're looking into.
Are you done with phase 3 or going on with phase 3?
No, so we're done with everything up till phase 3. And right now we're starting on phase 3. And my hope and expectation is that we can ship phase 3 and 4 for the fall release this year. That is my expectation, but of course I cannot make any promises there. It's also saying subject to change, just by the way. But that's what we're working on right now. Yep. I think I'm running out of time. I'll be here if you guys have questions regarding roadmap or something else.
Christian, it's not
Yes.
clear to me. So you connect CRM environment and the X environment.
Correct.
First of all, with the normal license, you have 3 environments for X Cloud and 2 only CRM. When I do a UAT in one environment and a UAT environment, and I put all the connection environment, which is the way to move connection and all the information on production. So release this kind of tool to production from a one key environment. So you understand? So I set up everything, I test everything, and at the end, okay, UAT is correct.
Yeah.
Now I have to move everything to production.
Yes.
So what happens?
Yeah. So
if there are two, what I have to replicate everything?
Yeah. So right now, the only way you can do it today. So the question is, how do I move everything I created for my testing to the production environment, all the projects and everything. The only way to do it today is to use the function to save as a template and then use that template. So if I go out here, the one we just created here, I have a number of options here. Let me scroll down. So I can save it as a template, and then I can share with everyone in my organization, and then it would be able to show up.
I know that for app, in our environment, CDS, you have the option to manage app in different environments and export and import.
Yeah.
This is not available already yet for graphical database.
I don't have the same import-export options, but it's also something I'm pushing very hard for, because for me it's also very difficult to share anything if I just want to share with a few of you. If I don't make it public available, it's very hard for me to share it right now. So it's something I'm pushing very hard for to get. Yeah. I think I will end the session now, but feel free to come up if you have questions, and thank you very much for listening in. Thank you.